All right. Welcome everybody to Saratoga Whiskey Club tasting number 202. Yeah, we had 201 just a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago with Holly online, little Scotland trip. But tonight we're excited to have Adam back. I think was this your
third time,
maybe even fourth time. Who knows? Huge lineup, 9 whiskeys. Just thinking tic-tac-toe. Whiskey tic-tac-toe. I don't know. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, big release, big spring release from Lost Lantern. Adam's going to walk us through all 9 of these whiskeys tonight. One of them is already gone. Like you can't get it anymore, which is, we'll talk about as we go through. There's a couple that we're out of, but we can get more of. So we'll be able to send you links to pre-order before those go bye-bye as well if you want that. But we'll let you know as we walk through these what's available and what's not. And the order is not always going to be what it is on the placemat. So just keep that in mind. We're not going to be going all the way through in order of the placemat, but Adam will tell us when to switch it up. And
it's a self-defeating sobriety test. That's great.
There you go. All right. So give it up for Adam for coming tonight.
Hi everyone, nice to be back. For at least for the people in person, show of hands, how many of you have either done a Lost Lantern tasting before or otherwise familiar with what we're doing? Have any of you not know anything about Lost Lantern? Okay, cool. Probably some online people too. So I'll do the overview. I'm Adam Polonski, the co-founder and head of whiskey sourcing for Lost Lantern Whiskey. And we are an independent bottler of American whiskey. And as some of you know, what that means is we are not a distillery. We will never be a distillery. Instead, we buy whiskey from small distilleries all around the United States, source the barrels, bring them to our facility in Vermont, which I just drove down from, and bottle them with full transparency on where they come from, whether it's a blend of whiskey from multiple distilleries or a showcase of just one single distillery. And what we'll be tasting today is our spring collection, which just came out last week and is focused on the theme of high proof versus low proof whiskeys. Low proof for Lost Lantern being a relative term, the floor here being 100 and some of the low proofs being almost 130. But that's how we like to do. Because one thing that we've noticed in the last few years is that there's an interesting conversation about proof, as a lot of whiskey drinkers are increasingly gravitating towards really high proof expressions for anything that's especially hazmat, which means 140 proof or higher. People get really, really excited about. And on the other hand, there are people who are increasingly moving away from cask strength whiskeys and gravitating towards a classic 100 proof, roughly that range. And it feels like the industry is kind of dividing a little bit in which camp you're in. And we want to bridge that gap a little bit and encourage people to see what difference proof makes for whiskey. That it's not necessarily better or worse. It's just different occasions call for different whiskeys. And even a different whiskey can show well at different proofs depending on the day and your mood. And the flagship of this collection and our way of really showcasing this is our first ever whiskey that we've proofed down in-house. We normally default to doing everything at cask strength, but are increasingly starting to change that just to show whiskeys at other proofs, see however they show best. So we're going to start, and I don't want to waste time talking when we could be drinking, with Far-Flung Bourbon 100 proof.
Out of your way. Are those his or yours?
Mine.
Oh, those are yours. Okay. Let me get all of these out of your way.
Far-Flung Bourbon 100 proof is the latest edition of our flagship bourbon. Every batch is a blend of bourbon from multiple different states. Every batch up until now has been barrel proof. This is the first one that is not. We carefully slow proofed it over the course of about a month down to 100 proof. And this is a blend of bourbon from 7 different distilleries in 7 states that are not really the places you would usually think of for blending. There's no MGP, no Bardstown, no Tennessee Distilling Group, which are great, but we're just playing with a wider array of small distilleries. So this blend, and I always have to look at the label because every one of them is different now, is Baltimore Spirits from Maryland, High Wire Distilling in South Carolina, Rich Grain Distilling in Mississippi, Santan Spirits in Arizona, which was also the component of Saratoga Summer 2 for anyone who snagged that, Still Austin in Texas, Whiskey Acres in Illinois, and Wollersheim in Wisconsin. So a blend of 7 bourbons from very, very different states that we brought together to create what we think is a harmonious whole that really showcases that great bourbon now comes from all across the country. And as our first 100 proof whiskey, we really worked very carefully to make sure that it still had a full depth of mouthfeel, and we think a lot of complexity to it, but also be the kind of whiskey that doesn't necessarily have to be your very last pour of the night or something that you don't want to share with friends who are not as into whiskey as we all are. Because I don't know if you have the experience where you're like, here's this new whiskey I'm really excited about. It's 130 proof. You'll love it. And the person is like, what? So this is both the perfect whiskey for, we think, for a before dinner drink, or for making cocktails with at home, or for sharing with friends. And is our new flagship. The rest of what we're tasting tonight are single casks that will come and go pretty quickly. Far-Flung Bourbon 100 proof will be around for a while, although the distillery mix will change over time. And this first batch is actually pretty limited because the state of Vermont took 80% of the release, which we didn't expect. So we got like 3 cases for the whole all of New York. So which was really not the plan. It was supposed to be like, this is our big release for New York, and the state of Vermont was like, yeah, we'll take it.
You can't push back. Like they just tell you what they want.
We could push back, but
yeah, not good.
Could you explain how you do that blend? Like just quickly, I know it's our only blend tonight, but just how that process works.
Yeah. So Nora, my wife, and our co-founder is our head blender. And I'm the head of sourcing. So basically I go out around the country, visit distilleries, bring bourbon in, we taste the barrels together, decide what we want to buy. But once it's in-house, we decide how we actually want to use it. Some things we know are going to be a single cask, and other bourbons we buy because we think that they'll play well with others. A bourbon that's great on its own in singular, 1 barrel, nothing changed to it, is not actually usually a barrel that plays well in a blend. We say that single casks have sharp elbows. They're not very friendly to other whiskeys, but a whiskey that goes great in a blend is often a little softer. Sometimes it has less character on its own. You wouldn't like it as a single cask. We've had some times where people have tasted all the components of our blends and they're like, these on their own, they're fine, but they're nothing special. But then when they come together, the different components of each one can create a whiskey that is really rounded and complex beyond any of the individual parts. We say that a single cask is like a beautiful painting that's in one color, like one of the fancy modern art types. And then a blend gives you a full palette of colors to play with to make a full landscape. And when the barrels are in-house, Nora tastes through dozens or sometimes like 50 plus barrels to decide whether this is going to go into a blend. And then we keep iterating on it in small different portions. So it's 7 distilleries, but it's not a blend of 7 barrels. It's more than that, and not all of them are full barrels. It's just bits and pieces till we get exactly where we want. We have no preconceptions when we go in of what distilleries are going to go into it. It's just what ones play well together, what fits well, and turns out to be interesting. And I'm curious, I don't want to just be me monologuing all night, so feel free to ask questions and tell me what you think.
Are you buying from these distilleries overages, or are they like unique attempts that they made that they didn't decide to bottle themselves?
It can be both. For something like this, it's usually us saying we want some of your bourbon, and just
Gotcha.
It's kind of what they have already. And especially these days in the whiskey industry, usually a lot of places have a little bit of extra bourbon, and we're putting their name on the label and talking about what they're doing, and that is a way for them to introduce themselves to people who wouldn't know about it otherwise. So at this point, whenever the vast majority of distilleries that we talk to are excited to work with us and sell us whiskey, and usually have a little to spare. But sometimes with a bigger name distillery, we ask them explicitly, what do you have that's weird and off the beaten path and different than what you normally put out? Which today is a little bit more on the discovery side of things that distilleries in a lot of places people don't know. But
Adam, what is slow proofed? Other than allowing you to start exactly where you want.
Who's there?
What is slow?
Hi, it's Peter.
So it's
Slow proofing change the flavor of the final product, or does it how long it takes to get to that proof change it?
It does change the flavor of the final product, because if you add water really quickly to a whiskey at cask strength, especially if it's at a very high proof, it can shock the liquid a little bit. Like, if you think about if you sometimes, like when you have one particle fall into your water bottle and it'll crystallize and turn to ice. It can be a little too sharp. And actually, if you add water too quickly, it can create some of the same compounds that are in soap in your whiskey, which is called saponification. It makes your whiskey taste like soap if you don't slow proof. So it's an old cognac technique to add add water very, very slowly over the course of days or weeks, or sometimes in cognac months. Basically just adding like half a gallon or a gallon every day to bring the proof down by about half a percentage point until you get it to where you want. And we know where we want it to be beforehand. For this, we want it to be 100 proof, but it really does make a difference to flavor and slowly integrates it. So even if you tasted the cask strength version of this and added water yourself to bring it down to 100 proof, it would taste a little bit different than the slow proof Far-Flung Bourbon 100 proof.
Do you think large brands that blend do that?
They don't, but they're also, I think, not just literally dumping water in as rapidly as they can. I think they don't do it over the course of weeks, but I don't think they do it over the course of minutes either. It's a little stretched out.
Okay, got it. All right, great.
Cool.
Adam, do you have a composite mash bill?
We don't. It's got a whole range of different things. For the blends, we generally have not been averaging out what the final mash bill is, because it just, every distillery is different, and we think it doesn't tell you all that much. Besides, it has all of the major secondary grains, and it has 100% corn whiskey or 100% corn bourbon, wheated bourbon, rye bourbon, a little bit of everything. But we don't put out the exact percentages of the mash bill for a blend.
Did you find yourselves sourcing water, or did you play with that at all?
The nice thing about working with a ton of distilleries all over the country and having never proofed whiskey ourselves before is we just asked like 5 or 6 of our partners exactly what they do and got their advice on how to do this in-house. And we actually did some extensive tests with different kinds of water, with our local water, with distilled water, with something called RO water, reverse osmosis water, and did blind taste tests of the 3. We quickly decided our town water was not going to do it unless you like seaweed bourbon. Nobody wants that. But between distilled water and reverse osmosis water, we tested for a long time and decided on reverse osmosis, which distilled water tasted very flat because it is like literally has nothing else in it. It's just pure water. And some of the other compounds and elements in RO water give it a little more texture.
Seaweed bourbon might be popular on Isla. Just saying. All right, we'll move on. Single cast.
That's fair. For the single cast, we're going to go basically in order, but we're going to invert things a little bit. So the next one on the sheet is Days Defile, but we're actually going to taste the one after that first, Montgomery, Montana bourbon.
Okay.
Montgomery is next.
And then we're going to do Days Defile, Idaho bourbon. So the rest of the whiskeys from here come in pairs from a similar region of the country or with a similar style, but one of them at very different proof points from each other. So the Montgomery is a 105 proof Montana bourbon from a distillery in Missoula, Montana, called Montgomery Distillery. It is a small family-run distillery that sources all their grains from the family's 4th generation family farm in eastern Montana, the part also known as West Dakota. And they don't distill on site at the farm because there's nothing out there. They bring all the grains to Missoula, distill it there. They are effectively doing something similar to distilleries like Frey Ranch or Whiskey Acres in other parts of the country, making a bourbon that really showcases exactly what the climate of this place tastes like. And Montana, Idaho, the Northern Great Plains are a place that I've always thought should be making a lot more whiskey than they are, because this is where a lot of the country's grain is grown, especially rye and barley, a little less so corn. But if you're drinking a Kentucky rye, the rye grain that went into that probably came from Montana or the Canadian prairies. So Montana bourbon made from 100% Montana grains. This is single cask at barrel proof, but the barrel proof is very low. It's about 105. That's because this distillery uses what's called a very low barrel entry proof. They proof the whiskey down when it's fresh off the still before they put it into the barrel, because they want it to be a bit of a lower proof. As you'll see, if you don't do that in the mountains, you get a very, very high proof. The Days Defile Idaho bourbon is 152 proof. And that's what happens if you just put it at the normal entry proof. So this is the biggest gap between the two. I recommend you nose both this and then the Days Defile Idaho bourbon next to each other. So really do the comparison.
Do you know what the barrel entry proof is on this one by
I
chance?
believe it was 100. But it's
100?
it's on our website. I don't have to double check. This should be on our website. And this to me is a surprising classic bourbon for a part of the country that I wouldn't expect. It's 4 years old, so relatively young for that climate, but I think very balanced, very a lot of vanilla, a lot of caramel.
Adam, did I mishear the barrel entry proof? Aren't there federal minimums?
There are, and there's a federal maximum, which for bourbon is 125.
Minimum.
I don't know what the
Oh,
minimum.
maximum. Okay, is there a minimum?
Not to my knowledge, or if there is, as long as it ends up
Not
in a proof
below
for whiskey.
40%, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Could you explain real quick the availability of these two, just so we know as we're tasting them?
So for this whiskey and the next one, the Montgomery Montana bourbon, the number of bottles on the shelf is what's left. So there's like 3 of them. And then for the Days Defile Idaho bourbon, there is none left on the shelves, but we have 4 bottles set aside for you all. So that has generally been the one that has sold out online in like an hour. So we'll have to hold a little bit for you and that's exactly what we're talking about, is that a certain type of whiskey lover these days gets really, really excited when they hear something is 150 proof. And they're just like, I have to have it because of that. But a whiskey that's 100 proof can be just as exciting and full of character and full of flavor, even if it's less like flashy.
Where's the distillery for Days Defile?
So good time to move over to that. So if you haven't tasted the Days Defile yet, start nosing and tasting that. No, it's
Oh, you
perfect.
told me to know that.
He's hopping on the
Days Defile is a new whiskey brand coming out of Idaho. Their distillery is in a town called Pocatello, or just outside the city of Pocatello. The whiskey was actually distilled in Boise 8 years ago at a distillery that is now closed called 8 Feathers. And Days Defile bought all of their remaining Idaho bourbon when they closed, took it on themselves, said we're going to keep aging it until it's a little more exciting and interesting. And they're using that basically as their start while they get running distilling. The distillery is started and run by a guy in Brooklyn, actually, who is one of the former marketing directors for Compass Box and Brooklotti, and has basically fallen in love with Idaho and with the idea of making whiskey out there. And like me, thinks that whiskey should come from this part of the country, that this is a place with a really unique climate and it creates powerful whiskeys with a ton of depth and complexity to it, and is showcasing that. And actually, we came across them the day they announced their whiskey for the first time, and I was in Salt Lake City the next week, and I was just like, I'm just gonna come up there, let's do it.
What's the ABV on this?
152, or so 75.9% ABV.
Okay, I was. Good. I missed that.
Yeah. So this is the biggest extreme proof between any of the two. So 105 proof for the Montgomery, more than 150 for the Days Defile. And similar, they're from the same region of the country, so there's some commonalities there. I'm curious what you all think, if the proof of the Days Defile is way too much, if from the Montgomery it's too low, if you have a very strong preference for one or the other.
Yeah, the Days Defile is very good.
It's pretty hot.
Hot.
Yeah, middle of the palate.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
But I can still smell it in the empty bottle.
The Montgomery though is delicious. It's like kettle corn and caramel, vanilla.
Yeah.
This is the Montgomery is delicious.
I love the nose on the Montgomery.
I was done with the colors. Figured it out.
It's funny, I love the nose on the Days Defile. It's like
Really?
heavy toffee, but the proof, I have to admit, maybe I'm slipping, but the proof gets to me.
At 150, I don't think it's you. And if anyone is interested, I recommend adding a little bit of water to the Days Defile, because just because we put a whiskey out of cask strength doesn't mean you have to drink it that way. And in fact, we encourage people to play with it a little bit, and you can add a little bit of that proof, and it'll still be pretty strong. but I think it can really change the texture of it. And these two distilleries are both places that people really don't know yet. Montgomery is only available in Montana and Massachusetts for some reason. I don't know why. I think he has some.
So the distillery in Boise is no longer there?
No, they closed, and it's similar with the Mississippi distillery that we worked with, where we bought all their bourbon and brought it in house to showcase what they're doing. In this case, it was another distillery starting up and said, "We're gonna buy out all your old whiskey and use it basically as our starting stock for our distillery."
How many barrels did you get?
We bought 3 barrels from them. They only probably have about 100 or so. And we did a 8-year-old bourbon, a 10-year-old bourbon, and a triticale whiskey. He basically gave us the weird stuff, which was nice. The mash bill in the Days Defile has triticale in it. Does anyone know what triticale is? It's a hybrid of rye and wheat. So it's a 19th century German grain that was artificially bred to bring rye and wheat together in one grain.
How do you say that?
Triticale.
Triticale?
Yeah, what was that? What's that again?
It is, so it's the secondary grain in the mash bill. And it's a hybrid of rye. It's called triticale, which is, I don't know why it's called that.
Oh, it's grown as a hybrid.
Yeah, it's an actual grain. that you
Right.
grow.
And that was for which one?
The Days Defile. There's going to be a quiz. There's going to be a quiz on all the mash bills at the end, so plan accordingly.
The heat is coming down.
Yeah.
For me, like once my palate adjusted to it, it's dropped quite a bit. But that first sip,
Yeah, it's very hearty.
this is my first whiskey from Japan too, so I'm a little out of sorts.
I don't think they really do hazmat whiskeys in
No.
Japan.
They don't.
Yeah, not their style.
They have some high proof single cask, but not. I don't think I've ever seen 150.
No. It's very unusually high even for a hazmat whiskey, and it's because the climate in the Northern Rockies is so dry. Because the water in the cask evaporates out of it faster than the alcohol does, so the proof just goes up and up and up pretty quickly with it.
I mean, pretty crazy. Probably went in like at 120, 125.
Yeah, it was 125 is the max, so that means over 8 years.
That's a lot. That's a big chunk.
Yeah. And part of it's just because a lot of the cask did evaporate. It was like half full. Which I think we got like 120 bottles from the whole barrel.
What is this?
Show of hands. Team Montgomery or Team Days Defile? Montgomery. Oh, hold back table. Days Defile.
Days Defile.
I thought that was a Days Defile table.
With water.
I didn't say you only get one vote. You can vote as many times as you want.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's what's interesting is they're very, very different whiskeys, they're very different proof, actually from quite geographically close to each other. If you picture Montana and Idaho on a map, Missoula is about 5 hours north of where Days Defile is in eastern Idaho. Actually, the Montana one is further west than the Idaho one, which is counterintuitive. But that's for the cartography nerds out there. Everyone ready to move to the deep south?
Yeah.
Well done.
If we must.
Yeehaw.
So next up, we're going to do Dread River and Fiddler Soloist from Alabama and Georgia. We're going to once again start with the second one. So start with the Fiddler Soloist Georgia Bourbon. This is probably the most unusual of any of the whiskeys that we'll taste tonight, just based on its flavor profile. It's a Georgia bourbon from a distillery called ASW that is really gaining a cult following down there, both for their sourced whiskey and for their own whiskeys, which go under the Fiddler Soloist label. Their specialty is using a lot of chocolate malt and smoked malt in their whiskey. So the mash bill on this is 56% corn. Bourbon has to be more than 51%. 14% malted wheat, 10% malted rye, 10% malted barley, 7% smoked malted barley, and 3% chocolate malted rye, which means it's roasted to a higher roast level. So this is a whiskey that to me tastes like coffee chocolate. It has a much darker tint to it in the flavor profile than a lot of other bourbons. It doesn't have as much of the sweetness. A little bit of hazelnut, and very roasty. It's a distillery that's really focused on making the style something that is in Georgia very distinct from Kentucky bourbon. If you're in the South, you have to be different than Kentucky bourbon, or else why are you doing it? People just drink that instead. And this I find to be one of the most interesting whiskeys in the collection, just because it is so different than what a normal bourbon tastes like. That's what we often look for. We don't want a whiskey from somewhere else to taste exactly like a Kentucky bourbon, or else why drink it? Why not just drink something that's $20 from Kentucky instead? Because it has a unique point of view.
Tell us more about the chocolate malted rye. I don't know.
Yeah. So when you make any kind of malted grain, you do that by roasting it. And if you roast it for longer, the grain gets darker, and that's called chocolate malting. Or there's no actual chocolate in it. It just basically means like it's like roast level on a coffee.
Okay.
Or like a
Or
dark,
like
a dark
that
roast.
just keep going.
Yeah, like a light roast versus a dark roast, just how long it's getting heated up. And chocolate malt is heated for longer, and it brings out more of those like coffee and like cocoa powder notes to it. Does that make sense? So this is the low proof version of this pair. It's only 129 proof. So we say that proof is always relative, and we think that compared to the one right before it, the Dread River, it actually does taste a lot lower in proof, because the Dread River is not quite as strong as the Days Defile, but it's still a hazmat whiskey. It's over 140. I think this is a 142 proof, 70.9% alcohol. The Dread River is a 6-year-old Alabama bourbon from city of Birmingham. It's the first distillery in Birmingham in more than a century, named for a legendary river that flows under the city, and I think is one of the cooler distillery names that we've come across. Just from a name perspective, I'm like, Dread River, that's a cool name.
It's like Walking Dead. Perfect.
Right. Yeah. And is a bit more traditional in flavor profile, but this is what I would expect from a Southern bourbon, where it has a similar flavor profile to Kentucky, but turned up several notches because it's much hotter and even more humid. It's a very powerful.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
My eyeballs are getting red.
This is the one that is actually sold out already, I think, but if anyone is desperate for it, we'll try to figure something out.
The Fiddler Soloist, what part of Georgia is that from?
Atlanta.
Atlanta.
Yep. And again, I'm going to ask, like, what does everyone think about these two, both on their own and in comparison with each other?
We're still on Dread River.
Yeah.
They're quite different.
They're very different.
Yeah.
I love
The
the
Fiddler is awesome.
I love the coffee kind of roasted notes on the. It reminds me a little bit of another Vermont distillery that bought whiskey from the Mad River. They do their malted or kind of coffee malt on their rye.
Yeah. So even just from the almost empty bottle, I just get like the intense like coffee note from it. It's so unique.
So what's the mash bill on the Birmingham?
The Dread River is a wheated bourbon. So it is 60% white corn, 30% winter wheat, 10% malted barley, 6 years old, 53-gallon barrel. They started distilling just before the pandemic, and then the pandemic hit, and they switched entirely over to making hand sanitizer and things like that for about a year. Not to bring anyone back to bad old times. So they have a gap where they had a few barrels left of 6-year-old bourbon. We bought all their remaining barrels of 6-year-old. Everything they had after that was like 3 or 4. So they had like a 2-year gap in distilling. But we think what they were doing at the 6-year point was really, really special. And We're pleased they let us take 3 barrels of it when there were only 3 left. Really intense. If any of you had our Mississippi memory a year or 2 ago, the Hazmat Mississippi bourbon, similar in profile, but this was aged in bigger barrels, so it was a little bit less intensity of oak to it. Curious if everyone has a preference between these two. And again, feel free to add water to it, play with it, add chocolate to it. See if the chocolate just melts in it. Put some in your car, save on gas. Where do you land? Are you team Fiddler or team Dread River?
I guess I have to cut through the alcohol.
Price point similar in all this.
The hazmats are
Over 2.
I don't know what your prices are on them, so I don't want to quote.
The Dread River we're out of right now, but if you want to know the Fiddler, 99.
119.
For Dread.
So they're all
Yeah, they're all
100, 120.
99 and 119.
Which is, for the record, way cheaper than it is online or in our tasting room. So plan accordingly. Does anyone want to go out on a limb and say they don't like either one of these? Because I'm always excited when someone's like, that one's not for me, and that's totally okay. That's the great thing about being an IB is we do lots of different things, showcase different styles, and not every whiskey is for everyone. Nobody ever wants to offend me. I always ask.
We got 2 votes for Fiddler in this room.
Let's do Fiddler. Who's a Fiddler fan?
I'd go Fiddler.
So about Dread.
Yeah.
Dread.
I'm team Dread. No, I was team
Fiddler.
We're a little behind on the catch-up tasting because we were busy buying a Fiddler.
I'm sure Charles is very upset about that.
Yes.
I don't want to rush everyone. Should we move on to the rise or chill a bit?
Yeah, let's take a second. Because I've got still whiskey here.
Adam?
Yep.
You can talk.
Okay, just off topic, but Anne is a fiddler, and she has a concert in North Bennington on May 17th.
Yeah, at Bennington College. So
if you guys can come down.
Yeah.
Are you soloing? Are you a soloist, Anne?
No, but somebody else is. They're doing a Bach double concerto with violin and cello. So
that's super cool.
It's at Bennington College, so it's free.
In other words, you're a violinist.
Yes.
I think Bach would object to the term fiddler.
I know, but
Only some of his fans, Rich.
I'm gonna step back a little bit and say we did our favorites within each pair, but we tasted 5 bourbons now, including the Far-Flung 100. Curious if everyone liked the Southern bourbons better than the mountain bourbons or vice versa. Team mountain bourbons? Team Southern bourbons?
Mountains.
This is what we like to see, because I feel like if everyone has the same opinion, then one of them just like is better than the other one, and then if it's divided, then it's just everyone has a different palate.
No, the mountain people are right.
I mean, when will a New York group ever vote the South? Come on.
Yeah, we've poured this at a festival. We poured the Mississippi at a festival once, and we said to someone, "This is from Mississippi," and they're like, "I don't want to taste that." Like, okay, like that's allowed. You don't have to taste it.
I love those bumper stickers in Montana that say, I hear Wyoming's beautiful, go there. No one wants anyone anywhere.
Adam, I think this is a compliment, but most of these do not taste like bourbon to me. You know, the Fiddler comes the closest to me to a traditional bourbon. That's not to say I don't like them; they're just different.
Yeah. And I would challenge that and say that they don't taste like Kentucky bourbon or
Yes.
Tennessee bourbon or
Yes.
bourbon. Because bourbon can be a wider array of things than it's traditionally been associated with. So I both agree and sort of disagree.
Understood.
Yeah.
Is the Dread River a high rye? Or what is?
No, that's a wheated bourbon. So 30%.
Wheated, really? Okay, thank you.
Okay, are we ready to move on from bourbon? Yeah?
All right.
All right.
All right, let's go to New Riff, Kentucky Rye.
New Riff.
North Carolina's got the work cut out for us.
Does everyone here know New Riff? Yeah. So great newer Kentucky bourbon and rye distillery. I've just been talking to them for a long time about how bourbon doesn't have to taste like it comes from Kentucky, or rye doesn't have to taste like it comes from Kentucky. The exception is if it does come from Kentucky, and then it should taste like Kentucky rye. This is actually the first Kentucky rye that we've ever done. New Riff is the only Kentucky distillery we've worked with. We wanted to work with a new wave distillery in the state, not one of the old guard, and also a place that let us work the way we do with everyone else, where we pick the barrels by hand, taste everything ourselves, buy it directly from the distillery after visiting, work directly with the owners, not just like pick off a spreadsheet like a lot of independent bottlers in Scotland do by necessity. So very, very classic rye, 95% unmalted rye, 5% malted rye. So it's 100% rye whiskey, 95% standard rye. And this is one of them. They do this and they do a malted rye, which they won't let anyone buy yet, but I'm working on it because it's really good.
So is this one paired or is this one a solo?
It's paired. The pair is the Broad Branch North Carolina rye, which is just before it.
Thank you.
And New Riff, really the vanguard of the new wave of Kentucky distilleries. Very classic in its orientation, but focused on just making whiskey the way it's always been done in Kentucky, but just for the new generation, and really dialed in on the process. New facility, very clean, immaculately clean facility, beautiful, and right across the parking lot from one of the biggest liquor stores in the United States.
Party Source.
Yeah, Party Source. Somebody's been there. Yeah, which is the founder of New Riff is the former owner of that store. So basically, be like if you all decided to start a huge distillery like just across the street.
We're almost as big as Party Source.
Almost as big.
In heart.
Yeah.
In heart.
You're bigger in spirit.
I wish we could sell snacks.
And the parties are better.
Yeah, you're good at snacks. I know that.
And then the Broad Branch is a rye that's from a pretty similar region of the country. They're basically just one state over, one state down, other side of the Appalachians, and is a hazmat rye. So the New Riff is the low proof rye. It's only, in air quotes, 116 proof. The Broad Branch is hazmat at 141 proof.
9 whiskeys, half of them hazmat.
Yeah, the New Riff is 6 years old. The Broad Branch is 8 years old. Is also 100% rye. And this is a distillery that founded in the city of Winston-Salem, an old tobacco town. The distillery is in a former tobacco shipment warehouse, but that's true of almost every building in downtown Winston-Salem. So it's not really special. It's just It's where RJ Reynolds and all the other like big tobacco companies were. Those have mostly gone away. So they're like, why don't we just embrace our roots and open the first legal distillery in the city in a long time. Maybe not the first distillery overall.
There you go.
It's an 8-year-old rye, and I think very, very powerful, very minty. An interesting comparison in that it really is just the other side of the mountains from Kentucky. It's our first time working with them, our first second North Carolina distillery, and a place I'm really, really excited about. We got some bourbon from them too, which we haven't put out yet, but it's spectacular, and they're starting to get some buzz too. If you ever find yourself in that part of North Carolina, I highly recommend a visit.
Is Lost Lantern newer to the hazmat scene? 3 of the 7, so
We've done some sporadically, and it's the first time we've done a release that's like focused on both them and on lower proof things. But we know that people really love it, and I'm both encouraging people who've never tried hazmats to try them, and also people who always chase hazmat stuff to also see what they can appreciate in 100 proof whiskeys.
Just a confirmation question. When we say hazmat, that's not a formal term. It's kind of just a slang about just how high the proof is, right?
It kind of is a formal term because 140 proof is the threshold where you are officially not allowed to bring that whiskey on a plane anymore because it is technically a bomb.
So the little flame symbol on the bag check page, you're outside it if you're carrying on a bottle of this.
So I don't play around with that, because if I had a hazmat bottle, I'm like I'm on the plane too, and I don't want to. It's not very likely to happen. But if you think about like the kind of spirits that you can light with a lighter on top of like a cocktail or something, theoretically you should be able to do that with this. So don't do that, but technically you could, and that's what hazmat means, is it's effectively it's combustible in a way that it's not.
Are
true.
taxes different? Like how
Thank you.
They're slightly higher, but
Yeah.
because the tax is just based on the proof.
Right.
Sometimes in hazmat whiskeys in Vermont, especially grain alcohol, you have to. It's like you bought alcohol 40 years ago, where you have to sign up on a list. You have to email the state to let them know you're buying grain alcohol. You get it in like a brown paper bag, and they have to keep all records of whoever buys it to make sure that you're using it.
You're not making bombs.
Yeah, you're not making bombs or illegally like making moonshine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's really, the hazmat thing has really become a thing in the last few years. You don't see that many from Kentucky because the climate there just doesn't really make it easy. It can be done, especially if it's like the 6th story of a big warehouse, but you're usually more likely to see like a 125, 130 than 140 proof.
Is that a hazmat rise? I don't think I've ever seen a hazmat rise.
Not many. This is the first one we've done. We've done a lot that were like 138 that were close to it. This is the first hazmat rye that first one we bought. We've seen a couple that weren't good, because there's a lot of whiskeys that are hazmat and people get excited about just because of how strong it is. But we want to. We're never saying that here's a whiskey that's so strong. Oh my God! Here's a whiskey that we think is really good, and also, by the way, it happens to be very strong.
Yeah.
But that's not why we get excited about it. So
This is great, the second one too.
Yeah. I think that this is often the one where the people have the strongest opinions on which one is better.
Okay.
Hey, Adam, on the topic of hazmat whiskeys, have you guys looked at or considering doing something like a light whiskey?
Yeah. I know you got me one.
We've looked at a couple. We haven't found one that was really exciting to us yet, but we certainly would do it. Most of them were made at MGP, which is fine, but it's just not our purview really.
Thank you.
Did I have oh yeah, didn't you do one of them? Or you did an apple brandy?
They do smart.
Yeah. We would happily do one if we came across the right.
And I'm writing.
You're so responsible. So wonderful.
So,
All right, where are we at with these two? New Riff, raise a hand. Broad Branch.
I liked it with a little bit of water.
All right, a little more broad branch in person, about split down the middle online.
Normally the core new Riff is too much black licorice for me, like anise. But this one I thought was a little more interesting, which was nice.
I also think these are a good example of why these are whiskeys that are for different occasions. You're probably, I think everyone mostly agrees that these are both good, but I think you're probably not likely to use the broad branch in like an old fashioned or a Manhattan at home, but you might with the new Riff. But you're not likely to have the new Riff like over a big rock as your nightcap, but you might with the broad branch. I like drinking really strong whiskeys on a big ice cube. I also do neat, but I think that the water can bring out some interesting things in it as it slowly melts. But that's what we're saying with this collection is the whiskeys, whatever the proof affects your experience of enjoying the whiskey, the times when you want to drink it, why you want to drink it. And that's what makes some of the whiskey so exciting and interesting.
So Adam, you have mentioned it a couple times. I mean, it sounds like you as a bottler are a high proponent of using your bottles, even your single casks, as bases for cocktails, despite just neat. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something I hadn't thought about at first until we had a few of our tasting room regulars who have started doing that a lot themselves and come in like every week and start telling us, oh, here's the cocktail I made with a single cask that I bought last week, or the amazing like Mexican Coke and bourbon that I did with your Hazmat Mississippi bourbon that sold out in an hour and is like impossible to find. But if you think that a cocktail like a meal is based, the quality of it is based on the quality of the ingredients. If you use really high quality spirits in a cocktail, it will taste better than if you're using on the extreme other end, like an $8 bourbon. I think it's much more fun to do it at home than at a bar where then your cocktail is $40, which is not the most fun. But if you're at home, you have the whiskey anyway, play around with making cocktails with something nice. And my father-in-law also does it now, and he can't drink his Maker's Mark old fashioned anymore. It's all about, granted, he's a little biased, but you do taste the difference. If you're using something that has a lot more complexity and flavor to it, it's worth playing around with if you're someone who likes cocktails.
And you get buzzed quicker.
I have no comment, and I will not respond to that.
Now, I'm just responding for a friend. But yes, when you use 130 proof bourbon in your Manhattan,
Drink responsibly.
You may have to adjust the proportions.
That is the one trick.
Why would you do that?
If you're doing cocktails with cask strength whiskey, a recipe usually assumes you're doing something that's like 86 or 92 proof. Use a little bit less or use a little bit more of the other ingredients, or else the whiskey.
Right. Yes.
Which may be what you want. That's fine.
What do you get hazmat other ingredients?
I'm with you, Rich. Come on.
Hazmat cherries.
It's like 160 proof.
I just did a tasting in Western Mass last week, and one of the guys there was obsessed with the hazmats because he was a hazmat technician. Like he was actually dealing with hazardous materials every day. It's just like he had like the radioactive sign on his hat. It was just like, I need all of these
to drink at my job.
Exactly. We ready for American Single Malt?
Yes.
All right. So once again, we're gonna do the second one first. So Copperworks and then Boulder.
Wait, hold up, guys. I know we're getting more alcohol in us and all this, but we got to be quiet so Adam can speak, and also people online can hear. So just keep it down a little bit. These last two, please.
Even with a microphone, I'm still too quiet.
Yeah. Okay.
So starting with Copperworks Distilling, these two American Single Malts are both what we call a American style of American Single Malt. So unlike the whiskeys we released in the fall, which are very Scotch-like, these were both aged in new barrels, just as bourbon has to be, but American Single Malt doesn't have to be, it can be. So they have the same vanilla, chocolate, richness from a new oak barrel, some leather notes, but of course are made from 100% malted barley. Copperworks is in Seattle. It's founded by some of the state's top brewers. If any of you have ever been to Pike Place Market, there's a brewery there, and the founder of the first brewer of Pike Place Brewing went on to start Copperworks years later. So really a vision of making American single malt in the way that you make beer. So they did actually have the underlying wash made at a brewery for them without hops, then bring it in, distill it on Scottish stills, age it in new barrels. The Boulder spirits, on the other hand, similarly, new American oak barrel, 7 years old, but a very, very different climate. The Boulder, Colorado, 6,000 foot elevation, high and dry.
Wow.
But both a lot of commonalities in flavor between
Your Scotch background.
I'm getting like berry notes on the Copperworks.
Apricot.
Apricot, yeah. Orchard fruit.
What did I put?
Heather said apple. Yeah. That's really good.
Believe it or not, Copperworks only 3 years old.
Wow.
Which is why we say, much like proof, age statements convey some information, but not all that much, because where whiskey is from dramatically impacts what the age means.
Smaller casks or something?
No, 53-gallon barrels. It's kind of surprising even to me. Like, it got a lot of color from the barrel. Like, it tastes. I double checked it 3 times when I was writing the label, because I was like, this does not taste like a 3-year-old. It tastes like a 5-year-old.
So where does that orchard fruit come from?
I think it comes from the barrel, comes from the barley. They use really high quality barley that's grown in the Pacific Northwest that was bred to be made into single malt and beer. It's a hub of innovation for growing grain for brewing and distilling, because of Copperworks, because of Westland.
Adam, what are they proofs?
So like bubbly too, like bubble gum, like fruit bubble gum.
Yeah, it's so viscous, like the texture. Someone had a question, I think.
Peter?
What is the proof of the Boulder spirits?
Good question. The Copperworks is 120 proof, and the Boulder is 138. Not quite hazmat, but almost.
Thank you.
Did you say 138?
Yeah.
I don't think it drinks like that.
I don't think it does either. We're also 9 whiskeys in. So.
In less than an hour.
Should we start a single malt chant? Single malt.
Wow.
I love American single malt. It's a different flavor profile than bourbon, and also different from Scotch. But I think that's what makes it interesting. If it tastes exactly like Scotch, then buy Scotch. I appreciate the initiative. I like that.
Oh, girl, I can't be stopped.
She wanted to make sure she got.
There's only 2. We encourage
Oh, DJ, if you wanna, there's only one left.
You are on it.
DJ, Boulder, she can't pick one left.
Right here, right in the drive. How did you decide to get into the IP game?
Grab it or lose it.
The whiskey's
Grab it or lose it.
yeah.
It tends to do that.
Like the figure of
So
eight.
I used to be a whiskey journalist. I wrote for Whiskey Advocate magazine.
DJ, grab it before you try
Wrote
it.
about and reviewed whiskeys from around the country. My wife worked at Astor Wines in New York City. And we both fell in love with Scotch IBs and kept talking about how someone should do this in the United States. There are all these great new distilleries that people don't know about.
We can order more, but they're
Eventually decided that nobody else is going to do it. if someone does it and they don't do it right, we're gonna be pissed about it.
Yeah.
So why don't we just do it ourselves? And then we took an 8-month road trip around the country visiting distilleries, pitching the vision, and now we've worked with almost 50 distilleries around the country. And most of whom, the single malt people already knew what independent bottlers were, but a lot of the bourbon people didn't. Like we had to really talk to them about like, this is why you want to do this is what we do, this is how you can showcase unique things or also introduce yourselves to people who don't know you. I think it's worked really well. We've built really good synergies with distilleries now, to the point that now some places will preemptively offer us really, really special whiskeys. Like we did the first ever 10-year-old McCarthy's Oregon single malt in the fall. Distillery in Nantucket called 888 let us do the first single casks that they've ever done.
Yeah, they don't, you never see that outside of Massachusetts. Yeah.
And it's interesting building an independent bottler here. It's in Scotland, it's just so understood as part of the landscape. And if you're starting a new one, unless you're like the former distilling manager at like Lafroig or something, you have to, it's very hard to get your foot in the door beyond just buying from brokers.
But you guys stay bourbon exclusively?
American whiskey exclusively. So all kinds of American whiskey, bourbon, rye, single malt.
Gotcha.
But,
Are there a lot of IBs that stay just American whiskey? Or? I don't think so, right? Yeah.
Not in this format. It's now like independent bottlers and sourcing, where you're boasting. This is how I explain it in the store. Hopefully this is right, but they're boasting about the distilleries and their partners, which there's no right or wrong way. But most of the time in American whiskey, they're not. It's not about who made it. It's about the blend, and they're buying to create their own brand.
Yeah.
Where this is more of a Scotch style, where it's a parent company. Lost Lantern is pre-Dram Orleans, and they're boasting about all of the great distilleries. They're bragging about the distillery.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. In American whiskey, it's always come back. Hide the distillery, make our own blend, which is great, but this is a different model for American whiskey.
Oh, wow.
And part of the difference too is that a lot of places that source, they'll only source from 1 or 2 distilleries. They're like, we get all our whiskey from this one place in Indiana, this one place in Tennessee, and we blend it different ways. Whereas for us, like we're working with new places all the time.
Yeah.
We've worked with New Riff, Boulder, and Copperworks before, but the other 5 are all new until now. And just working like Scottish IBs are working with like everybody that they can.
Right, they're looking for a piece of all 130 distilleries.
Right. Including ones that are not available any other way. Like in Scotland, it's a lot of places that only go into blends, and that's not really a thing here. Here, it's more like, here's a whiskey that's only available in Idaho, and if you're not in Idaho, go to Lost Lantern.
Gotcha. All right. Cool.
So where are we at between the Copperworks and the Boulder?
I'm really curious about this one.
Let's do Copperworks. Raise your hand for Copperworks. And Boulder. All right, kind of split.
It's like pretty divided across all of the
split.
whiskeys.
Yeah.
Which is what I like to see.
Yeah, it's good. Can anybody count backwards from 10 right now?
Rich.
I feel like I
10, 8, 7. Oh no, they burned my 9s.
Would you like that base 10 in English?
I feel like I should start booking like a van for these things after, so I can bring everyone home.
That's like a doggy daycare. Like drop them back off.
It's-
We could all use a walk. Go for a walk.
And to throw in even more comparison questions, who across the 4 pairings, who always or mostly preferred the high proof version?
Maybe.
Asking the hard questions now.
Mostly,
but not 100%. Yeah.
Was anyone all lower proof?
Mostly.
There was.
And
That was nice.
Yeah, that was.
And maybe it's just me, but I added water to the lower proof and it just got soft. It didn't really evolve that much. Was my whereas the high proof one, adding water, it was interesting. It was complicated.
Did this change or challenge anyone's thoughts on what proof they like their whiskey at? Whether it's like, oh, I can actually find the interesting things about hazmat, or the other way around with low proof whiskeys? No.
I like the Far-Flung.
No thoughts?
I do lean towards like higher proof, but like I'm not quite hazmat proof yet, I guess.
Do you find
No.
hazmat is one of those things where it's cool, so we'll bring it in, but I'm usually begging for a sample because I'm nervous that it's over oaked, that it's one note, that it's too one dimensional. And is when you're out tasting a lot of them, is that what you're finding? It's over oaked?
Yes.
I think I would just like to note that a lot of these were hazmat, and we also did 9 whiskeys in 1 hour, which is like twice as fast as often, and everyone seems to be vertical, or at least propped up well enough. So I think it says something about something.
Usually it's about 15 minutes of whiskey, but this pairing strategy.
I like the pairing strategy. Yeah, it's kind of fun.
We always do a lot of whiskeys. We did a Zoom tasting once where we went through 10 whiskeys in 40 minutes.
Whoa.
And then I got in trouble. And I was like, nope, man, you don't need to go that fast.
I always was.
Katie bar the door a moment for a tasting like that.
I would have been in it.
All right, does anybody have any questions before we end the online portion of this? It's getting really loud in here, so.
Yes, Charles, one question. How many people are at the store?
17.
Oh, excellent.
Great.
Excellent.
I have to tell you just a comment. It's not a question, but I really like the fact that we had bourbons and then ryes. The surprise for me tonight was the malts, the single malts. I really enjoyed them. I wonder if I'd like them as much if they had been at the beginning. I don't know, but I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I usually do them at the beginning, but I like it this way too.
Yeah. I think these were
They still
being
held up.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's partly because they're in new barrels. If they're as late as the Scotch Lovers collection was, it would
Right.
maybe lost a little bit. Question down there.
Yeah. Are you guys gonna keep making the slow proof Far-Flung at 100?
Yes, it'll be different blend over time. But yeah, we expect to generally have it be available from now on. But,
I did it online, just to make sure.
Adam, Far-Flung is a sort of a standard for you, so that you have a bunch of different distilleries in different types of whiskeys, right?
Yeah, and we have Far-Flung bourbon, Far-Flung rye, and we have some usual suspects who go in the blend, but we mix it up with some new places too.
So the only one that we can't get from you is Montgomery and Dread.
Dread, I have no more. Dread and Montgomery and Fiddler, I have no more of.
Okay.
But you have Fiddler and Montgomery here.
I think Fiddler's
For now.
So Fiddler, Dread, and Montgomery.
I have 4 days to file from you, and that's it. And then,
People have been ordering Copperworks online, but
Right, but you have enough.
we can get more of it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
yeah, thank you all so much for coming and tasting a bunch of whiskey with me, and I appreciate it.
Adam, you said your wife does the blending, correct?
Yeah.
We're
I want
gonna.
to say your Far-Flung bourbon I thought was incredible. Please don't lose that incredibly buttery, silky mouthfeel.
I'll tell her.
Good night, all.
Right.
Good night.
Thank you.